not necessarily an easy sermon to preach, especially given the times in which we're now living and the way that people think and feel about what's going on in the world. I can't imagine how this sermon would have been preached or taught in the Great Depression. I don't know how well it would preach in Haiti or other places where life is very, very difficult. One of the things that makes this difficult text to talk about is because it's been a favorite of TV evangelists for a number of years. And it's something along the fact that God loves a cheerful giver. And if you give, God will bless your giving and multiply it. Haven't you heard that sermon before from the TV evangelist if you happen to hear and listen? So it's a tough sermon to preach, but it is, it's not normally my way to preach about finances, and this isn't fundamentally about the finances. So I'm not going to start today. But the whole, I think we see the whole thrust of what St. Paul's after, we'll understand what it's about. A little bit of context can help. The context of St. Paul's appeal in 2 Corinthians is that the mother church in Jerusalem is experiencing extremely tough times, perhaps due to persecutions or other things, but the church in Jerusalem is rather destitute, and the saints, as St. Paul will call them, are in great need. And so St. Paul feels that he is called upon to encourage the Gentiles, the churches in the diaspora, to take up a collection so that he might take it and minister to the needs of the saints in Jerusalem. And so in 2 Corinthians this morning, we hear St. Paul giving his best pitch. And let's examine his words, because what he does speak about are principles that are important principles for us to think about, especially in these times of economic woes and so forth, and the concerns that we all have about where our economy is and where it's going. The first principle that St. Paul talks about is really a very common sense kind of principle, especially if you plant a garden. But St. Paul says if you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly. And this is a general principle, and please don't think it's just about your finances, although finances are a part of who you are. Your money and how you deal with it is a very personal thing. In fact, somebody said once, you can ask someone any kind of embarrassing question, and they will not be half offended when you ask, how much money do you make? Well, why do you want to know that? We're very, very touchy about, because we do sometimes seem to value our position in society by how much we make. Hopefully that's not true for us for Orthodox, but nonetheless. But this isn't primarily about finances, although that's part of it. It's a general principle that if we sow sparingly, we reap sparingly. And that can apply to not only our finances, but to our interpersonal relationships, our relationship to our church family, our relationship to our church, our relationship to God. If we sow sparingly, we reap sparingly. It's just the way it is. It isn't that God's being mean or ugly to us, but if you just only put a small amount of grain in the ground, you can't expect a big, huge harvest. It's just the way it is. And so St. Paul wants to remind us that we need to be people who sow abundantly. And in whatever area of life, be it with our spouses, with our children, what in our church family, that we need to sow of ourselves, be it our finances, our attendance, our sharing, our talents, our gifts, whatever it is that we have as people, we need to sow it in abundance, not just little drabs of tiny little bits of ourselves. Because if we do that, we just get very little back. And that's an important principle that St. Paul wants to help us understand. The second thing is that whatever we give, be it finances, talents, time, whatever it is that we do, St. Paul says, please, let it be a matter of joy. Don't let it be a matter of grudging. Father John's, is crying about this, or he thinks he needs that, and so I guess I'll just have to go. St. Paul says, no, please. Let what you give, what you sow, come from the heart and be a matter of joyous giving, because God loves a cheerful giver. A cheerful giver. God loves. And so whatever we give, whatever we do in our time, whatever it is we're offering, we should give it from the heart with great joy. And then it is truly blessed with God. Now, here's the part that really sounds like it comes from the prosperity preachers on television. If you do so, St. Paul says, God will multiply the seed that you sow. It doesn't really sound like TV preachers, I'll tell you. So what I want you to know is write a check for $1,000 and God will multiply, and send it in and we'll pray for you. No, that's not what I'm talking about. But it's that God is bountiful. He's not stingy. If you think about the Lord told us the parable of the sower and the seed. Think about it, that he sows the seed, he continually sows the seed. God is continually sowing and giving and outpouring of himself and just constantly giving. But think about that parable, because 3/4 of what the sower sows falls on bad ground. It's wasted seed. There's only one little bit of ground that actually produces something permanent. And yet God is still pleased to continue to throw seed on bad ground. That's how bountiful God is. And so, in a sense, then, what St. Paul is saying is that we need to be like our Father. He says in the Sermon on the Mount that God is this way. He causes the rain to fall on the fields of the just and the unjust equally. He's no respecter of persons. He's kind and good to all. And so Jesus says, now go out and be like Dad. Be like that. Be benevolent. Be bountiful to your enemies and those whom you love. And truly you would be blessed. But the other principle in all this thing of bounty, and this is the part that the TV preachers don't share with you, is that St. Paul says that the bountifulness of God is to make sure that you have, and underscore this next part, you have what you need. He didn't say that you have what you want. He said you'll have what you need. And the bountifulness of God is to see that you have what is necessary and sufficient for you to exist and be well. Now that flies right in the face of the other reason why it's a tough sermon, because this flies right in the face of our anxiety. Will I have what I need tomorrow, the next day, or in the next year if the economy continues to go bad? The answer is yes, you'll have what you need. You have everything you want, or everything you believe you have to have the life that you want to live? Maybe not. But, again, Jesus says to us, if God so clothes the grass of the fields and the flowers and feeds the birds, will he not take care of you? Why are you so anxious about these things? Well, maybe because we're not sure. Maybe my wants are my needs. That's what I'm not sure about. But God's sufficiency is not to send in $1,000 and get $10,000 back, like the TV preachers tell you. It's that God's bountifulness is to be sure that you have everything you need, not so much everything that you want. Of course, and then in the end, as St. Paul reminds us, well, even that which you sow, and even that which you reap, it's all God's. It all comes from God, it all goes back to God. So I guess then in the end, this is a question for us. It's one I ask myself all the time. When can I say, enough already? Enough. Remember the man who the Lord told the parable, who continually built bigger barns. And he kept having a bigger harvest, he kept building bigger barns. And when finally he had enough, he said, well, I can take it easy now, have a party. And that very night, God comes to him and says, no, you've been very foolish, because today your soul is coming with me. And St. John Chrysostom has pointed out that he reached a certain point in his life where he had more than any man could want. And yet when he got a bigger harvest, he just built bigger barns. And St. John Chrysostom said, didn't he realize that he already had places in which to store the extra? Now remember, he already had plenty of what he needed. With that extra harvest, he already had places that he could store that grain. And what were those places? The stomachs of the poor. That would have been a fine place to put that extra grain. But it never occurs to this man to do that. But when do we say, Lord, thank you You've been very good to me. We live a blessed life. We have everything we need. And so if you continue to bless me, can I give the rest away with joy? My life, my time, my talents, my finances, can I give it cheerfully? Because it's so taken care of my basic needs that now with my abundance I can bless others, bless my church, bless those around me, the charities and the poor. Could I do that with the extra that you give me? I don't know. Our church, All Saints, needs cheerful givers of their time and talents and finances. There's so much to do here. Our jurisdiction, therefore, needs cheerful givers of time and talents and finances because there's so many important programs that remain